All right. Well, welcome back from your weekend, first of all. And what we're going to do today, for as long as it works, which I think we'll do the whole show. I'm expecting that. We have no guests scheduled. And what I want to do is I want to talk to you about the Democratic field, the group of people seeking the presidential nomination on the Democratic side. We could also talk about the Republican field a little bit. If you're a Republican and you're getting interested in William Weld or something, that would be part of it. So first of all, let me give you the number, and then I'll try to set this up a little bit more. Our call-in number, where you can call in, you'd call this number, and then you would use that to call in, is 860-275-7266. That's 860-275-7266. And I'll explain to you now why you might call in. So, first of all, you would call in if you are already fairly passionate about a particular candidate, or if you are passionately opposed to a particular candidate. Now, I think it's fair to say that there's 20 candidates right now running in 2020. There's 20 candidates running in 2020. Most of them are trying to court the votes of 20-somethings. Does this all sound a little suspicious, like there's 20 candidates running in 2020? I realize probably tomorrow somebody else will get in the race and mess the whole thing up. But so there's 20 candidates running, 16 of whom, I might add, using the agreed upon Democratic National Committee rules for debates, 16 of whom are eligible to be in the debates already. And the other ones have time. It's not going to stay at 16. So I'm going to, first of all, read you the names of the 20. And you're going to draw blanks on a number of these, all right? So Joe Biden. Okay, I'll just do the last names. Because I literally don't know the first names of a few of them. Anyway, Biden, Booker, Buttigieg, Castro, Delaney. See, I don't know his first name. Gabbard, Gillibrand, Harris, Hickenlooper, Inslee, Klobuchar, Messam. I'm not sure I know his first name either. I know who he is, though. Moulton, O'Rourke, Ryan. I think I know his first name. Sanders, Swalwell, Warren, Williamson, Yang. Okay, those are 20 people. 16 of whom have already qualified for most of the DNC for any of the DNC sanctioned debates, unless they change the rules somehow. So that creates some real problems in terms of choice. So first of all, yeah, I'd love to have you call in if you are passionate about somebody, or if you're even, I will tell you that right now, I can't say a sentence about my support or enthusiasm that doesn't contain the word not. For example, I am not enthusiastic about Joe Biden. I do not support Joe Biden. If Joe Biden is the nominee, I will not be happy. But the other people, it's more like I guess I would sort of say that I would use the word not twice. I would say about, Andrew Yang. I'm not supporting Andrew Yang. I'm not enthusiastic about Andrew Yang. So you see what I'm saying here. I could either use not once or twice. Anyway, if you want to call in about any of this, and then I'm going to set up a few other things to kind of get you going. 860-275-7266. 860-275-7266. All right? So, another question that I would have for you is, did the fact of Biden getting in, did it change your attitude at all? Either were you supporting somebody else and now you're supporting Biden, or were you unhappy that Biden got in? Do you think, and I guess another part of this is, do you think that Biden getting in specifically hurts the chances of certain candidates, takes away numbers from those candidates? Obviously, he seems to lead in the polls. He seemed to be leading in the polls before he got in, all that kind of stuff. And another question I have, and the phones are beginning to ring here, so I think I even know who the first caller is. 860-275-7266 is, it used to be, pre-2016, you looked askance at candidates who had no office holding experience. So like a Marianne Williamson or an Andrew Yang, somebody like that. Now, I'm not sure that's the case, and I'm wondering what you think about that too. Like, would you be willing to consider a Marianne Williamson or an Andrew Yang? Or I think those are the two main ones. Because after all, Donald Trump is our president, all right? So 860-275-7266. Let me get to the first call. It's John in Kensington. Hi, John.
Hi, Colin. I just sold your screen caller. I'm turning into my mother.
All right.
She used to say, I'm glad I'm as old as I am. I feel sorry for you kids. I can't believe in a country this great, this is our choices. I mean, I guess I would most as an old-time Democrat identify with Joe Biden. I don't want to vote for him for president, but these other people are attacking old white guys, and I'm one of them, and I feel like I'm under attack by my own party. It's like I hope I never hurt anyone. I don't know why they're turning the guns on me.
Yeah, I don't think you should take it personally if they say something about old white guys.
I don't want to vote for Joe Biden, but I certainly would vote for him before I vote for the rest of them. I read this thing about this Beto O'Rourke. Oh, my God, he sounds like a kook.
All right.
A big article in the New York Times about him.
Believe me, Beto is one of the, I would say, in terms of the sanity spectrum, I'd put Beto somewhere in the middle. So, all right, well, listen, so it sounds like right now you would vote for Biden. You don't want to vote for Biden, but you would vote for Biden because none of the other 19 people does anything for you, right?
I would vote for Biden, and I think I would end up saying tribe over truth.
All right.
You know what I mean?
I mean the tribe of old white guys. I'm turning into your mother too, in the sense that, and I'm told the only way that I'm turning into your mother, well, that I'm aware of, I may be turning into your mother in lots of different ways, but the way that I'm aware of is that I increasingly think, oh, I'm glad I'm not a young person. I'm glad, I'm glad whatever this is, it's going to be over for me in 20 years or so. So I do feel bad for other people who have to figure out on a long-term basis what this is. All right, we've got lots of interesting callers here. I'm just going to speed right through them. The number again, 860-275-7266. Here we go with Lorna in Southampton. I believe that's in Long Island. Hi, Lorna.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. So full disclosure, I know most of them, and I'm involved in politics, but I'm not involved with any singular one.
Yeah.
Wanted to start there.
Okay.
I feel like everyone's getting excited about these candidates like Pete Buttigieg and Beto O'Rourke, but they're going to come into the White House with training wheels on, and we don't have 2 years to make so somebody gets to know every agency.
Right. Well, I mean, I think. Well, don't you think I'm not supporting either one of these guys, but don't you think Beto is a little less the case with training wheels than Mayor Pete would be? I mean, Mayor Pete's the mayor of South Bend. I mean, Beto at least has some familiarity with Washington, D.C.
I agree with you. For him, it's that I don't think he's that experienced or practical, but I also have a little bit of an issue with his personality. It's a little over the top for me.
You mean jumping up on tables?
Yeah, I mean, he just doesn't have any gravitas.
Yeah. I mean, you could get a dog trainer in there and pretty quickly get him to stop jumping up on tables.
That's true. When Clinton came into office, there was 2 years where his administration was a mess.
Yes.
And as much as I loved him, as Barack Obama as well, there were 2 years where they really weren't on it. Then they got their stride. We don't have 2 years. Every agency's gutted. It's floating. Temporary agency heads. We need someone to come in who gets it right that day.
Okay, I want to know where you're heading. I want to know who's getting the Lorna seal of approval.
I do like Joe Biden. I've known him a long time. I'm also an avowed feminist, and I've never been offended by him. I've been around him. I love Elizabeth Warren. I wonder about her electability because she just she has high negatives. I love her. But I really think that Kirsten Gillibrand, Amy Klobuchar, and Kamala are very solid, very solid.
All right. So you've narrowed it down to 5. Maybe you've narrowed it down even a little bit more than that.
Tulsi Gabbard doesn't have enough experience,
Right.
I don't believe, and I don't think she's the right person. I have narrowed it down. I would love to see a woman more than anything, but what I really want is someone who gets it the day they walk in, not with training wheels. I love Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah.
I think he needs to, be shaving a few more years before he decides to do this.
I feel like it's going to be somewhere between training wheels and a walker. I think we just need to keep wheels out of it somehow. Everybody should be able to walk unassisted.
Bernie Sanders is a curmudgeon. There's a big difference between an executive and a legislator. He's a great legislator. I personally feel he's not an executive.
All right. I'm going to move along here, Lorna, but I think I've successfully taken your temperature. So she's, if I were to sort of try to distill Lorna, I would say she's going to support one of the three women. All right, here we go. Here's Elizabeth in Thomaston. Hi, you're on the air.
Hi. So I guess I should start by saying I'm a 20-something in 2020.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm hip. But
well, you're certainly you can be marketed to anyway.
Yes, exactly. So I know a lot of the candidates are trying to market to my generation, and personally, the one who puts me off the most is actually Beto, because he's just trying too hard. You know how he's live streaming at the dentist, and
right. That was too much.
Yeah, and what about losing a Senate race makes you think that you can then win the presidency?
True.
It's very counterintuitive to me.
So you're down to 19. I mean, you're making some real progress here.
I'm not a fan of the, older white man either, but I also realize that we need to pick up the votes that we lost in 2016.
Right.
So it's this balancing act of, do you support Kamala Harris, who's, I think, an incredible candidate, but I'm concerned she might not be able to win. And it's like putting your morals against practicality.
Right, but first of all, I don't have any of the answers. I am as buffaloed by all this as anybody who's going to call the show today. But the way that I think about it right this second, subject to change within the next 4 hours, is that you shouldn't focus too much on electability. I mean, I know everybody doesn't want 4 more years of the Night King. I get that. But, if you focus too much on electability, you begin to lose track of what it is you truly believe or who it is that you truly admire. And it seems to me that ought to be 80% of your consideration and electability 20%. I know lots of people would say different, and I might say different tomorrow. But like, if you think Kamala Harris is better than anybody else, that's who you should support. Anyway, we got a lot of time before you could change 5 more times, right?
I mean, that's very true. It's so early.
Right. It's very early. But on the other hand, there are all these people clamoring for our attention, Elizabeth. 20 of them. All right. I'm going to move along here. Thanks for calling. But stay in touch. And particularly if you change your mind, I'd like to hear immediately about this. Because we should do this periodically, I mean, not all the time. But like maybe we should do it again in September or something. Take everybody's temperature then. All right. Let's is this like our former intern? Is it that, Penina? I don't know. We'll just find out. Hi, you're on the air. Is this our former intern?
Yeah, it is.
You should have used a fake name or something.
I know. I wasn't sure if I would be able to go on. But, I just want to say thanks for having me. I really, really loved Kamala Harris, especially during the Kavanaugh hearings. I think she just nailed it, and she wouldn't let it go. And that kind of gave me a feeling of like, wow, I would love to see her debate Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And then she has a record number of marijuana charges under her belt when she was AG in California.
That she filed, not that were filed against her. We should be clear about that.
No, she filed. And then she was on, I think it was Stretch and Babito, but I could be wrong. She's on a radio show, and she said, like, oh, well, I smoked weed and I inhaled when I was in college, and I listened to Tupac and Biggie. And I'm like, you also arrested a record number of people for that. Like, don't brag about that, and you should address it.
Okay, so she's lost you a little bit, or maybe a lot. Or she lost you a lot.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't decided yet. I really liked Pete, but I agree with the last caller that he is also green. But I'm a millennial, so Right,
you're a millennial, and you're a young millennial. As millennials go, you're a young millennial. So,
I'm just on the cusp.
You're of great interest. All right, we'll check back in with you in September or whenever it is we do this again. All right. So can I do one more? I don't see why I can't do one more. Here's Tom. Is this Tom? Tom in Simsbury. Hi, Tom. You're on the air.
Hi, Colin. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon yourself.
I'm one of your senior callers.
Okay.
And my three preferences, early preferences, are Amy Klobuchar,
Okay.
Beto O'Rourke, and Pete Buttigieg.
All right. You did a better job saying Buttigieg than you did of saying Klobuchar, but that's,
They're challenging.
we've got plenty of time to get these names right. That's what I say.
Exactly.
So that's interesting. So go through. So Klobuchar, Buttigieg, and who was
Beto
the?
O'Rourke
Okay.
and Pete Buttigieg.
All right. That's sort of an interesting. So let's say that puts you, to my way of thinking, kind of a little bit towards the center and away from the left. None of those people are running way to the left, right?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to stay away from coastal candidates.
Right.
I want somebody from the center of our country.
Okay, that's a good idea. All right. So those are so that's an important thing to you, that it's not the coastal elites. You think people from the center of the country can probably talk in a better way to possibly convertible voters because
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to more transitional states, border states.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, that's an insight, and it's a good insight, and I cherish that insight. So we had a caller named David. Who thinks John Delaney would be the best, but he's too shy to go on the air. See, that's a problem with these Delaney supporters. I think there could be a huge John Delaney groundswell if A, his supporters weren't so shy, and B, if I had any idea who John Delaney is. Like, I know that there is a person named John Delaney and that he's one of the 20, but I couldn't really... I know this is sort of bad that I'm hosting a radio show and I write about politics for a living and I don't know who that is. But there's 20 of them, and I've reached an age where, although I can still remember the lyrics to like Emerson, Lake and Palmer tunes that I heard in 1974, I don't absorb new information that well. I have much more trouble with that. So one suggestion that I have, and then we're going to go to a break. We've got Jason, Marianne, Linda, Andrea, Tom, we just did Tom, Preston. We got a bunch of callers here. We're going to go to a break. One thought that I have about this is, if we're going to get rid of some of these people, it seems to me that, so they have this thing about how you qualify for the debates, and I'm going to try to do it off the top of my head just to prove that I know something. So you can either get 65,000 different people to give you individual donations, parentheses. This is why Andrew Yang, who you might not know very much about, has qualified for the debates already, close parentheses. Or you can poll at least 1% in 3 different major accredited or accepted by the Democratic National Committee polls that are either national polls or in upcoming primary states. And so I think I stated that more or less correctly. So if you can do one of those two things, you qualify for the debates. But see, I think there also needs to be a mechanism by which you disqualify for the debates. Like, let's say you go another 4 months and nothing else ever happens. It seems to me you should at least have to pay us some money, like give the U.S. Treasury $5,000 of your own money, because you're wasting our time right now. You're eating up people's attention span about a very important topic. There should be a penalty that you pay somewhere down the line. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. Don't hang up, Jason, Marianne, Linda, Andrea, Steve. We'll be back.
Who's bound to love you? If you're lying on the beach with the transistor going, kick off the sand flies, honey, the love's still flowing. If your head says forget it, but your heart's still smoking, call me at the station, the lines are open.
All right, so we're taking phone calls right now. 860-275-7266, about the Democratic primary field, the 20 candidates, any of whom could be president. If nobody calls up about Andrew Yang, I'm going to be really annoyed. All right, so, but I'm just going to go through the line. No favorites, not playing favorites, just starting at the top of the list and going down. So here's Jason and Canaan. Hi, Jason.
Hey, how's it going?
It's okay.
So, Andrew Yang,
There we go. No, all right.
So no,
you were playing around with me.
I'm one of those 20-somethings that every candidate is trying to get their vote.
Yeah.
And last election I was very much into Bernie, like a lot of people my age.
Yep.
And still am.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing I'm going to be looking closely at mostly this year is how the DNC treats Biden versus all the others. Because it definitely feels to me very much like Biden is just this election's Hillary. Where it feels like, it's a safe choice. There's going to be marketed as the guy who can beat Trump. But as you put it really well, to me, it's not about who can win. It's who represents me.
Right. I mean, I even though I'm not a young person, I feel like you and I might be a little bit similar. Anybody who can't talk persuasively and eloquently about the reallocation of resources in this country, money, access, power, anybody who's not talking about that, first of all, the establishment candidates are not going to talk persuasively about that. You're not going to hear that, in a way that's believable from Biden. And if they're not talking about that, I'm not that interested.
Yeah.
All right, so we figured that out.
I really do believe that. I feel like I'm one of the only people that thinks that the election cycle is way too long in this country.
Oh no, you're not. You're not as alone as you think you are about that.
Because, we are, a full year out, and we're already talking about, this election like it's a month away.
I know, and there's already 20 frickin' candidates. I mean,
yeah, and I feel like what happens is people my age, what happens is they get burnt out on it.
Right.
We start out a year and a half before, and by the time it's election day, everyone's just tired of it.
So you don't really have a favorite right now. It could be Bernie,
right now it's Bernie.
Yeah.
With probably Biden as a distant second.
Ah.
I know.
How about Andrew Yang? He's like guaranteed minimum income for people. Come on.
I know, which is
check him out.
Universal basic income is a really interesting idea. We're just not there yet.
All right. Thanks for calling in, Jason. Great call. I'm so glad all these young people are calling up. They must think it's a different radio station or something. No, I think young people are listening now. Here's Mary Jane from North Stonington. Hi, Mary Jane.
Oh, hi, Colin. I just wanted to call in because I think there's a candidate named Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
And I think she could beat Trump. She's a good speaker. But she has, as part of her platform, legalizing prostitution, which is a really bad idea. Anybody who's interested in kind of researching it, go to the day, April 13th, 2019, and read about Bruce Beamer and the prostitution that he was running mainly for himself, it seems like, at the Speedball, because very limited people, people who are perhaps mentally challenged, are drawn into this and forced. And I do think that it's something that we'd be just as well without having that legal, and maybe Ms. Harris could change her idea.
Right.
I think she's worried about police harassing prostitutes. I think that's what she's thinking about. But I think for a policy, terrible idea, and she is a good speaker.
I think what she has supported so far is the decriminalization of so-called sex workers. Now, first of all, there's so many candidates. I don't know everybody's position on everything, but or even close. But that might be a far cry from the total legalization of prostitution. In other words, that wouldn't necessarily mean that you could run a prostitution ring and suffer no consequences. I think, first of all, the decriminalization, I'm guessing, I don't know this for sure, I'm guessing it applies to the sex workers themselves as opposed. So it's the difference between somebody who's using marijuana and somebody who's selling marijuana or whatever. So decriminalization is different from legalization. So just sort of bear that in mind as you evaluate here. Sound fair? Okay.
Yes, and highly recommend Time Magazine, March 4th, 2019. I'm a retired librarian. Short little article on every single one of the guys and girls who are running, except for the very newest. It's a really wonderful source, so you can kind of get a thumbnail sketch of everybody.
So, thanks very much for calling in. I'm just looking at it right here. I think all she's ever said about this when asked a question about it is in an interview with The Root. Do you think sex work ought to be decriminalized? She answered, I think so. I do. And then she says, when you're talking about consenting adults, I think that, yes, we should really consider that we can't criminalize consensual behavior as long as no one is being harmed. Well, that's maybe a little bit further down the road than I had imagined that she had gone. But it's also maybe not a position paper issued by her campaign or part of the policy section of her website or something like that. So as everybody keeps saying, it's early. Let's wait and see. Here's Linda in Woodbury. Hi, Linda.
Hi. I had the idea that it's this huge field that we have is, I think, a good thing, because if you look at what it could be, if it weren't a huge field, what if it were 3 or 4 candidates? My feeling is that they would be drawn and quartered by the Republicans. They've got a pretty impressive machine out there, and to have 20, they can't go on the attack as hard as they might. And also it gives these people who are probably a pretty remote chance, it gives them a chance to build a little war chest and also get a lot of name recognition. They might be aiming for 4 more years down the road rather than this next election.
Well, yes, but
I might be maybe I'm overanalyzing it.
No. I there are people who are probably in that field of 20 who are probably angling for something other than the presidency, or who are at least splitting their hopes and their intentions between the presidency and some other possibilities. I don't think that's a wildly cynical statement for you to make. But I would say the only thing that I would disagree with, I think, first of all, you're sort of right that Fox News doesn't really know who to attack the most among the 20. So it is good. There's sort of a herd immunity there. There's just so many of them, who does
safety in numbers.
Who should Sean Hannity, safety in numbers is a better way to put it, who should Sean Hannity try to destroy? However, they all are all competing for some of the same scarce resources, money, campaign workers, campaign volunteers, and stuff like that. So to a certain degree, maybe they hurt each other a little bit. All right, we're going to Andrea in Hamden. Well, this is so much fun. I'm having a really good time. Hi, Andrea. You're on the air.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Sure.
Well, I just want to say that I am a huge Bernie Sanders supporter. I was in the last election. Mm-hmm. I think that DNC did a terrible disservice to him the last time. And I really hope that the millennials overlook that he's an old white guy, and some people call him curmudgeon-y, because if you really look at his platform, he has an amazing progressive platform that he has been talking about for the last 35 years of being in politics. He's really the only one I feel like who could actually get any of those things done. And it's almost a good thing that Trump has torn the whole government down, because someone like him can go in and build it back up in a way that serves everybody, not just a few. And I just hope millennials will really consider him and get behind him.
All right. Well, so that's a very impassioned and articulate support of Bernie. That was very well done.
Okay, great.
Right. The only thing that I would say about Bernie that was called to my attention recently by Mike Pesca is that Bernie still keeps complaining about millionaires and billionaires. It's millionaires and billionaires. And Mike was pointing out that, I don't know, probably there's probably somebody here working as a reporter in public radio in Connecticut who, if you added up all of his or her assets and subtracted the liabilities, you might eke out, say, $1 million. There's quite a distinction between that person. Now, if that person had his or her net worth multiplied by 10, that would be 10 million. Multiplied by 100, that would be 100 million. But $1 billion is 1,000 million. So millionaires and billionaires, they're really kind of not the same thing. Billionaires are special. That's why we make such a fuss about the millionaires and billionaires. All right, let's go to Steve in New Hartford. Hi, you're on the air.
Hello, Colin.
Hello.
I'm a 70-year-old white guy
mm-hmm.
who finds himself very much drawn to the younger candidates and the female candidates.
Mm.
I really like Gillibrand, Harris, Klobuchar. I especially like Elizabeth Warren, even though she's a little bit older. I like some of her policies, but the person who I really am drawn to is Pete Buttigieg.
It's so hard to say.
I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and interviews on television, and what I like about Pete, besides his obvious intelligence, and a lot of the candidates are very intelligent, but I liked his answer to the question of what he would do in his first 100 days. All of the candidates seem to be keying in on health care and reallocation of resources, which are very important. Pete also keyed in on democracy, on the things that are making it very difficult to say one person, one vote. And I especially liked his ideas for what he would suggest for the Supreme Court.
All right, that's great. I mean, I'll just tell you that I was very much bedazzled by Buttigieg in the early going. You know, I'm a little more suspicious of him. I mean, I guess intentionally, he has no policy section on his campaign website, like no policy section. So I don't know. When I see that, it makes me feel like he's running on his biography, which everybody does, but he might be running on his biography a little bit too much. So I need to see.
Don't you think that he, like the other candidates, are all going to address health care and reallocation of resources, and none of that's going to be accomplished by any one of them by themselves. They're going to have a bipartisan approach that attracts at least middle-of-the-road Republicans, as well as the rest of the Democrats.
Right, but I don't want to be using ESP to figure out what this guy thinks. You know, I want him to tell me what he thinks. But thank you very much for your call, sir. That was excellent. First of all, we have some open lines now, so we are handicapping the field. We're not handicapping the field. We are just talking about the field. Yes, it's early. Yes, the primary is a long way away, and the election is even further away. But 860-275-7266 is where we're asking you to call. If you'd just like to sort of give us a sense of, you know, where are you leaning right now? Who among these candidates is reaching out to you? And also, I didn't bring this up yet, but I'm certainly going to talk about it in the third and final segment, because I have an example of what I consider to be bad political journalism. But I'd be interested to know what kind of role you think the media will have in all this. How much of a part? I mean, the press used to play, I think, a bigger role than it probably will now. You know, I mean, one of the lessons of Trump, obviously, is you can run without the press on your side and do quite well. And I think increasingly, you look at candidates like AOC, she didn't win, I don't think, because the press liked her so much, but because she was able to organize a base of support that would stay with her. And I'm wondering whether that can be scaled up to the national level. Maybe it can't, but I wonder about the importance of the press. All right, let's talk to Billy in Middletown, who wants to talk about a candidate who's not running for president, which I think, by the way, is the best kind of presidential candidate. Hi, Billy.
Hi, thanks. You know, as I'm listening to everybody, I keep changing my mind. You know, I liked Pete B. I'm not going to bother trying to pronounce his last name. I think he's a great speaker, and he comes across well. And Pamela Harris, I was attracted to right from the beginning. But all these months, I've been really hoping that Chris Murphy would change his mind and throw his hat in the circle there. And I have a soft spot for Joe Biden. I always have, and there is more will be revealed. That's all I can say. You know, I think that issues. They had a thing on NPR a couple of weeks ago about how people use issues to aim for a certain target that may not be the same as the issue that they're talking about, and I think that's what's happening now. So anyway, I'm confused, but it's great to listen to people's opinions. Thank you.
I like hearing you be confused. I will say I think it's quite possible that Chris Murphy could throw his hat in the ring. I don't think he'll run for president, but he has very good hand-eye coordination. So in terms of like throwing the hat in the ring, I think he could definitely do that. All right, what do you think? I think I should take maybe one more call, and then we will go to a break. So we'll go to Mike in Cromwell because he's been waiting a while. Hi, we've got another Bernie guy here. Hi, Mike, you're on the air.
Hi, Colin. So there was a Bernie kickoff event that I hosted on Saturday this week in Cromwell, and it was really surprising the age groups that showed up. We had a bunch of millennials, but we even had some people in their 70s as well. A guy from East Hartford who was around during the Vietnam protests and stuff, and he was relating his experience to what's going on today. Personally, I think Bernie is the most genuine candidate out of the field. This is coming from someone who really values service. I did some work for a couple of years with the AmeriCorps, and I ended up becoming a teacher. Ended up teaching at UConn for a little bit. And as you were talking about before, a bunch of young people listening to your show, I'd always tell my students to listen to NPR for their news. So that's my perspective on Bernie. I do have some concern about Biden because I did study politics for a little bit, and a niche area I did like to research was conspiracy theories. If you remember last election as well, the Pizzagate thing on the Fringe. There is a lot of that with Biden. I see on Reddit and stuff already with like children and the women. He already has that, and I could see a bunch of ammunition built up against his campaign.
Right. I mean, I'm sure that's all nonsense, and you'd hate to disqualify somebody based on nonsense. I think there's plenty of other reasons not to vote for Joe Biden. Yeah. I don't think we even need to go out into the wacko conspiracy realm. We could find lots of reasons right here on planet Earth not to vote for Joe Biden. All right. We're going to take a little break. We're going to come back. I think we do have an Andrew Yang call. About time. And let's get a Marianne Williamson call, too, while we're at it. Let's some of these non-traditional candidates.
To the radio for my favorite Colin show. What's my opinion? You want to know? You're gonna have to listen to the
radio. I figured out this great mnemonic device for remembering all the candidates. You take the periodic table of elements, but mix in the mnemonic device for remembering the time zones in Canada. Prime ministers can't eat any nachos. But every third word, you add the device for remembering taxonomy, which is King Philip came over for great spaghetti. And then, you know what, probably easier if I just show you. It's Buttigieg, Biden, and Saul. It's Harris and Warren and Inslee. It's Hickenlooper and... Wait a second, let me start over. It's Buttigieg, Biden, and Saul. It's Yang and Beto and... Tell you what, come back tomorrow and I will totally do it for you. Today's show was produced by Betsy Hickenlooper and me, Kyone Yang. Welcome back to Jonathan Klobuchar Diaper Pants. The part of Bill Curry was played by Seth Moulton. Can you imagine if there was a presidential candidate named Seth Moulton? There is. Never mind. On tomorrow's show, Dust. You know, like the Avengers. I didn't see the new movie. Are they still mostly dust? And now, back to Colin.
All right. So, I'm in favor of calling him Klobuchar Diaper Pants for the foreseeable future. But welcome back to Jonathan McNichol, who was away on paternity leave, and he's back. And we're very happy to have him back. I don't know how happy he is to be back with us, but he's trying. He's trying to put on a brave front of being happy to be back with us. I think he'd rather be home with his baby. All right, so, and that's a good placement of priorities. All right, so I asked for an Andrew Yang supporter. I think I have one on the line here. Jan, I hope I'm saying your name right, but you are, I believe, an Andrew Yang supporter, correct?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
So tell me about this.
Well, I want to vote for him because he proposes solutions for issues that got Donald Trump elected, i.e. the loss of millions of jobs to automation. Mm-hmm. He doesn't blame scapegoats. He doesn't blame immigrants, foreigners, or white guys for the issues that's facing the country. He tells the truth and he faces the reality. So basically, technology advancement replaced all those jobs and is going to continue replacing millions of jobs. We simply don't need that many people to work in many of the traditional jobs. And he proposes a basket of solutions to address that.
First of all, you got to love the number of positions he takes in his policy section of his website. I think there's 105 different policy positions, so he's not ducking any issues, and he does seem to see exactly as you've described it, the move towards automation, roboticization, artificial intelligence is something that affects the job market probably in a more significant way than the kind of immigration that's been made into a scapegoat. So I'm just repeating what you said back to you. I don't know why I'm doing that. But anyway, thanks for calling in. I've been watching some clips of this guy. He's pretty impressive. I don't know whether he can make a dent in the field, but he's got a lot going on anyway. So yeah. So thanks for calling in.
Ask the listeners to listen to his look for him, listen to his interviews, and I think people will be impressed.
All right. Thanks very much for your call, Jan. Actually, even Marianne Williamson, and I hate to say even Marianne Williamson, that's not fair, but she's obviously this person who's very famous for another thing, for her spiritual guidance, which she derives from something called A Course in Miracles, and she's Oprah's spiritual advisor. And so, I mean, it's easy to write somebody like that off. But I was watching there's clips of everybody now, also because of course CNN keeps having these endless town halls for all these candidates. And I was watching her answer some questions about crime and punishment and education. And I mean, she actually answered the way you would want a political leader to answer the question. It wasn't like she didn't know the answer to these questions. She's run for Congress in 2014. I sort of expected, I don't know what I was expecting, but she, for example, talked, I thought, very eloquently about how we fund up education through the property tax, which means the nicer the houses are around where you live, the better public education you get, which doesn't seem fair when you put it that way. All right, so let's go to, I was going to give my example of bad political reporting, but I may not get to it because there's so many of you calling in. We'll see. Here's John in Woodstock. Hi, John. You're on the air.
Hi, Colin. So I'm going to go back to something I've said about candidates for a long time. I have three things that I measure them on. Their compassion, their intelligence, and their courage. And for me, looking over, as much as I have had time to, at any rate, looking over all the candidates, Bernie still comes way out on top. And added to that, he's also, look at his website. Look at his website back in 2016. He's got solutions. He's got policy ideas. He completes the equation on how do you get that free college tuition. Now, you may not like that idea and you may not agree with it, but he completes the entire piece there. And the last thing I'll say is, playing off something you said earlier, that the difference between a billionaire and an NPR host who might just crack the million mark is pretty darn vast. I would just say that the distance from that NPR host to those of us who were paycheck to paycheck is massive. And most of this country, or a huge chunk of this country, is closer to paycheck. And for those folks, you got to look hard at what Bernie's saying, what Bernie's about. And he's still my number one choice. Elizabeth Warren would be number two.
All right. That's a great call. Great points all around. Thanks so much, John. And I said at the top of the show, I'd be happy to hear from a Republican who's struggling with his or her own set of choices, or a conservative. I think we have one in Nicholas from Hamden. Hi, you're on the air.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going okay.
Yeah, so I only support for Democrats. If it were one for me to support, it would be either Gabbard or Ojeda. I'm probably butchering their names, though.
Okay.
They're both Army vets.
Okay. So, yeah, Gabbard and Buttigieg. Okay, yeah.
Just because after Donald Trump fired Mattis and Kelly, and the way he did it, that was when he turned me off from him completely.
So, and you're not toying with the idea of William Weld or somebody like that actually primarying Trump within his own party?
I don't think he could beat Trump if he tried.
Okay. So you want a veteran who has some concept of command structure and how the military actually works.
Yes, that, and I feel like veterans, like, they might have their policies, like, a certain way, but I feel like they'd be a lot less partisan in carrying them out. Like, they would reach across the aisle a lot more than, say, Booker or Kamala Harris or definitely Beto O'Rourke.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks for your call. I got another call. I might have time to make my little point here at the end. Here's Shelley in Middlebury. Hi.
Hi, Colin. I just wanted to say that Bernie is not the guy because he threw abortion access under the bus in support of an unproven claim that anti-abortion Democrats can help the party in red states. And that can't just be reduced to political expediency. There's a bigger principle involved here. And meaningful accountability is necessary to the constituency that makes up the core of the Democratic Party, and that's women of color and black women in particular. Black women are the most consistent Democratic voters and are strong supporters of reproductive justice, including abortion. Support for any anti-abortion Democrats not only proliferates restrictions, but it's also hardest on women of color. And that marginalizes this critical constituency in the very party that claims to represent them. So I think access to abortion is a fundamental linchpin of women's autonomy and economic security in this country. And we need to own our bodies. We need to control the means of reproduction. This is just bullshit.
Okay, try not to use that particular word. But I mean, my understanding of Sanders on abortion is he's got a lifetime pro-choice record. What he said, I think, was that you should support a pro-life Democrat if he can beat a pro-life Republican, or he or she can beat a pro-life Republican.
He said that we need to have a completely Democratic government all the way across, all branches.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that that's necessary.
Right.
I think that whoever the candidate for president has got to understand that it's time to, pass an ERA.
Mm-hmm.
It's time to stand up for women. This is the era of Me Too. We saw what happened to Dr. Ford in the Kavanaugh hearing. I want to see a presidential candidate that's going to want to impeach Kavanaugh, that's going to want to place Merrick Garland on the court.
Right. I don't think you can really impeach Kavanaugh unless he were to do something while in office that constituted an impeachable.
I think you could impeach him if he perjured himself.
Yeah, I think, good luck with that. All right. So rather than me make my point, why don't we just do one more here as we're heading down here? We got Mary Beth in West Hartford. Hi, Mary Beth. Can you do it fairly swiftly?
Sure. I just want to repeat what Meghan McCain said on The View this morning. I don't agree with everything she says, but she has a good point. Democrats always cannibalize each other, and Republicans get in line. So we have to remember that to win.
All right. I think we just heard that with the previous call.
Oh, sorry.
No. I mean, no. I don't mean. I think the previous call was a good example of the point that you're making.
Oh.
So the previous caller was a person attacking Bernie Sanders. I think one thing that we're seeing here, I've seen it twice on this show today, is people find one thing that the candidate said once.
That's right.
Not an official position of the campaign. One thing that the candidate said once that could be interpreted as not in support of a particular thing that they care about. And then they just kind of go to town on that candidate.
That's right. And we need to win this, so we can't have perfect candidates. So.
It's what is sometimes called the circular firing squad. Okay, so I had this point that I was going to make, which would take more time than I could. I don't have time to make it right now. But it is, the press plays a role in all of this too, and how the press handles these town halls, the kinds of questions that get asked, the way that the question gets asked. I could quickly tell you that I was going to play a clip of Don Lemon talking to Kamala Harris, and he's asking her about prisoners, whether prisoners should have the right to vote. And he goes, do you think prisoners like the Boston bomber should have the right to vote, the Boston Marathon bomber? And I mean, that's the wrong way to ask the question. And if Kamala Harris had seen it coming, what I would have wanted her to say is, Don, there's 2.2 million people in prison in this country. We're the world's largest per capita jailer by a long shot. Now, do you think most of those 2.2 million people are a lot like the Boston Marathon bomber? Or do you think more of them are like people who've been arrested for drug offenses, for drug possession offenses, or burglaries and stuff like that? So when you ask me a question about whether or not those 2.2 million people in prison should be allowed to vote, and you tag it with, like the Boston Marathon bomber, the implication being that's what they're like, those people in prison. I mean, that's being a crummy journalist, and that's trying to put the candidate into a position where they kind of can't win. If they either way, they'll wind up endorsing an unpalatable position. So shame on you, Don Lemon. Shame on you. And that is not the first time that has been said.